following video contains discussions of disturbing artistic content and real-world atrocities. Today on Underground Oddities, we celebrate the arrival of October 31st. Happy Halloween. I wanted to do something a little different today, something special for the occasion, and talk about an album that I consider to be the most disturbing piece of music that I've ever let enter my ear holes. I'm not saying this is the most disturbing piece of music ever made, just the one that messed with me the most that I've personally listened to. But before I start diving into this topic, I want to know what albums or songs or artists in general that have disturbed you the most throughout your lives. Comment them below because I'm always looking for more crazy stuff to experience. I'm really curious to see what you all recommend. Today's video is about an album that falls beneath the power electronics genre of music. Wikipedia describes the classification as a style of noise music that typically consists of static, screeching waves of feedback, analog synthesizers making sub-bass pulses or high-frequency squealing sounds, sometimes with screamed and distorted vocals with hateful and offensive lyrics. This is a genre of music you'll often see floating deep down at the pitch-black depths of a few music genre icebergs. And the specific album I'm going to be talking about today is GR by Deathpile. Before I talk about the record itself, here's a bit of context that surrounds the inspiration for this project. Gary Ridgway was born in mid-February of 1949 in Salt Lake City, Utah. And by November 30th, 2001, at age 52, he would be apprehended and confessed to 48 murders. Later on, after even further questioning, Gary would admit to the killings of at least 71 women and teenage girls near Seattle and Tacoma, Washington.
In Seattle this morning, police are hunting a mass murderer believed to have killed as many as 21 prostitutes in the last 22 months.
Been called the Green River Killer ever since the first bodies, 5 of them, were pulled from this river. Since then, 7 more bodies have been discovered nearby, all those of young prostitutes, according to police. And the number of missing increases steadily. 2 were added to the list this week.
Police in Virginia are investigating the execution-style murder of 5 women in the past 11 days.
They call it the work of the Green River Killer, probably one man who has murdered 13 young women near Seattle.
Explorer scouts have found the remains of another human body buried on a wooded hillside near Seattle. The skeleton is the 4th to be uncovered in the Green River Valley in 3 days. Authorities fear it could be the remains of the 20th victim of a sexual psychopath who preys on young prostitutes.
He was a ruthless, cold-blooded monstrosity that hunted down sex workers and runaways, strangling them and often leaving their remains around the Green River. Not only did he kill these girls, he was also known to occasionally return to their bodies to commit necrophilic acts. Ridgway is a human being that truly lurked among the lowest depths of depravity. He is currently serving a life sentence without parole in Washington State Penitentiary. He avoided the death penalty in exchange for information on the locations of more missing women. In 2003, Deathpile, a noisy experimental electronic duo, released a concept album called GR, possibly standing for either Gary's initials or Green River, or both. GR is the most disturbing album I've ever listened to in my entire life. Most of the vocal performance on the record is from Gary's perspective, his thoughts, his ideas, his inner monologue, all screamed out over abrasive electronic sounds that assault your senses. The lyrics are incredibly graphic, recounting Gary's real-life exploits. The record is filled with detailed descriptions of sexual violence and complete human degradation. Genesis, the first track, is meant to paint a picture of what may have formed Gary into the psychotic killer that he would eventually become. The voice recounts the perspective of a neighbor, telling his point of view being nearby Ridgway's turbulent childhood home.
Just from my yard, I can hear the screams over there and the yelling. To me, they're spankings. It seems more like beatings.
He also tells us Gary had problems with girls and how they feared him. Throughout the song's runtime, an atmospheric, distorted rumbling swirls in and out of clarity. The sounds here are quiet in comparison to what would come next. As soon as the second song starts, you're immediately assaulted with the colossal wall of electronic violence.
Marsha, my high school sweetheart, my first wife, my first heart. Send me on duty for 6 months! You couldn't wait, Marsha!
The The wretched sounds of Gary's voice screech out over blown-out auditory chaos, and most of the remaining runtime on GR sounds like this, all while the lead of Deathpile, Jonathan Kennedy, howls extremely misogynistic lines from Gary's psyche. Once this track starts, the record will only become more and more bleak as time goes on. It's like being dragged through hell. The sounds coming out of this thing are incredibly disturbing and often struck me with a sense of fight or flight. The third song on the project, Addicted, is about Gary's self-conflict of being addicted to prostitutes, the very same ones that he hates to his core. He starts with uttering his disgust for both himself and the ones he preys on. Around 3 minutes into the song, we hear a sex worker who escaped him talking about Gary and her encounter.
When I said, "Are you sure you're not the Green River Killer?" he starts choking me, claiming I bit him. He does call me a bitch. I do remember that.
After her brief recount of the situation, Gary comes back with,
"She got lucky, but I learned. I fucking learned, and so did the world."
This song juxtaposing both of their voices is so incredibly haunting, much like the entirety of this album. It's such a visceral dive into human psychosis. Every time I hear any part of this project, I'm frozen. It's like nothing that I've ever heard before. Many albums I've experienced can evoke serious emotions within me, but what makes this one stand out is that it's based in reality, based around very serious things that actually happened. It's not just some horrorcore record that tries to disturb you with disgusting or offensive lyrics. GR would not exist if these women were not actually murdered. It's a piece of art that exists because many people actually died. It carries so much weight to it when you listen to it. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth with every single song on this album, mainly because it's so grim, and also if you want to experience the album firsthand, you can without it all being explained to you. I'm also not incredibly well versed in human psychology, so if you want a more in-depth breakdown, I'm sure there's way more talented creators on this platform who have already done so. Track number 6 departs from Gary's vocals for 12 minutes with Known Victims. This one has a mostly quieter but still very haunting production, as a reverbed woman's voice reads out the names, ages, and locations of all of Gary's known victims. The 12-minute runtime really drives home how serious this case was and how many people were involved in this nightmare. Skipping ahead again, we land on track number 9, the final song on the project, called You Will Never Know. Probably the most disturbing track on the album for me. The things about Gary's killings that we as spectators of the cases will probably never know. He asks us questions that only he knows the answers to, and the questions are some of the most atrocious and cruel things I've ever heard written in a song. He ends the song with, "Do I feel remorse? Do I feel proud? Do I feel it all? You will never know, and I will never tell." He repeats these two lines several times as the album crashes into silence. This final track really highlights the concept of this record. GR is a glance into Gary's mind, for you to witness the swirling, screaming nightmares from within. The human mind is a very scary place sometimes, and to be exposed to the possible sounds and thoughts spinning in the brain of a bloodthirsty deviant like Gary Ridgway is a very frightening proposition. And even with this look into his mind, we still will not know everything about what happened with these murders. GR is the most intense piece of music to ever enter my headphones. It's a pit of pure hatred and misery. It's daring and boundary pushing. And ultimately, I can't help but admire art that aims to devastate you and shake up your entire world. Most of my favorite artists of any art form are these kinds of artists. GR by Deathpile is an important record. It's a piece of true crime history wrapped up in ear-destroying noise music. I love what Deathpile did with this project. They dared to go where most artists would never go, and show anyone looking for true darkness something that'll quickly send you your morbid fix like a shotgun blast to the face. Thank you so much for watching this Underground Oddities Halloween special. If you like the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. And I just want to wish everyone watching this happy Halloween. Stay safe, stay spooky. I'll see you guys next time, hopefully.